Everyone is talking about AI strategy, but here's the real question. Why do so many AI initiatives start with excitement and end with very little real change inside organizations? Ideas and pilots are everywhere, yet very few companies actually turn AI into something that runs inside their operations every day. That's exactly what we are going to be talking about today. Welcome everyone to another Tech Social. My name is Gabi. I'm always your host, and with me is also always Edgar Martinez as our moderator. And I'm happy to introduce John Torres, Director of Operations and AI Strategy. He will have a chance to introduce himself in a bit. John, we're very happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And our topic today is like how organizations move from AI ideas to AI operations and what actually takes to make AI strategy really stick. So with that said, we are live in YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you see me looking around, it's because I'm like on those two pages as well. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to put them on the chat. We'll try to answer them. And Edgar, yes, over to you. Welcome everyone again. We can get started.
Thank you, Gabi. Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited about today's episode. In particular, we were talking a little bit before we started live, and I think it's gonna be really exciting to explore how things actually become real, right, for companies. And I was telling John that it would be a good idea also to understand a bit more about when it's the right time to start and what's the approach that he recommends, right? So I guess today we will uncover some of these questions and at the same time learn a lot from John. So John, welcome again, and please tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're currently doing in the space.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here today, Gabby, Edgar. I really appreciate the hospitality of welcoming me into this chat here. Give everyone just kind of a brief understanding of who I am. So my name is John Torres. I am the Director of Operations and AI Strategy at Media Genesis. We are a small digital firm here outside of the Detroit metro area. This firm has been around since 1996, so we're entering our 30th year in this digital space. You know, we do a little bit of everything from digital marketing to website branding. If it's digital, we probably do it, and so it was a perfect spot for me to land in terms of working with operations and AI. And you know, obviously, technology has a big big space here in the Detroit metro area, and we're just lucky enough to kind of be in the right place at the right time. And with AI especially, you know, there's just everything is changing at constantly at every second and every turn. So it's my job here and along with the rest of our team to kind of keep a pulse and see what's happening and see what's going on with it. But then to kind of try to break it down a little bit, like you're saying, I think AI in general is just this idea that's out there. There's just a lot of like, you know, what is it? What can it do? Do I need to be involved in it right now? And if so, how do I get involved? And so with a lot of our clients, that's generally how we kind of approach things. We want to talk to them from a strategy point and say, where are you right now? And then let's match that technology to make sure that it's the right step for them going forward. So I do that every day, and it's been a blast. You know, my background, for some fun background information, I'm actually a lawyer by trade. So I did that for about 3 years before I transitioned into working here at Media Genesis, and it's been exciting. It's been fun, but everything that you learn as an attorney, whether that's being, you know, very detailed and understand the evidentiary background of all these things, I think it's equally important, especially as we start to look at new technologies and understanding the building blocks and the right steps to take before you move your venture, your idea, your project forward. So looking forward to our conversation for sure. So
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a pretty cool start. I'd say I'm really wanting to know more about your perspective on how the laws and these kind of things need to evolve also, right? To catch up with what we are seeing in terms of technology. But before jumping there, I would like to start on the very basic, right? For you, John, when you speak about AI, what do you envision? What are the different topics that you consider AI, and that also your customers are looking for when they reach out to you?
Sure. I think the number one thing, and anyone that's looking at a digital firm or looking at us, I think the number one thing that we do is we try to provide efficiencies and we try to provide scale for no matter how big or small that you are. People are always trying to find a way to reach out and get involved and get their name out there in front of other people or in front of the right people. And so that has always been a day one thing for us at Media Genesis. And so AI naturally fits into that kind of idea, right? It's how do we utilize this new technology in a way that makes sense but in a way that augments what we are already doing at whatever company, business, or idea. So when we talk to people about AI, I like to look at it as we need to understand it as a tool of efficiency and a tool of augmentation, right? It's not a tool of replacement. It's not something that's going to magically change the world for their company and they went from this smaller position to this higher position. And it's kind of we start at like that educational standpoint with clients a lot of times, and it's just kind of letting them understand when we talk about AI, we really mean talking about what kind of system can we put in place for you that can take something that maybe is taking 3 or 4 different type of people doing it and then not letting those people really expand in what they're good at, right? So people are great at ideas, people are great at being creative, people are great at humanizing things. But when they get stuck in the day-to-day of, did I file that correctly? Is this spreadsheet correct? Did I send this to the right person? That takes up, and I think anyone can probably attest to this. How many emails that they get in their daily inbox all the time? How many things are they repeating on a day-to-day basis when they could be spending that time building relationships? And so when we talk about AI with a lot of our clients, it's just that sense of let's understand first and let's map out what you're doing right now with your workflows. Whatever your job, whatever your opportunity is, how are you doing that now? Before we go and say, how is AI going to change you? It's going to say, well, what are we doing now? Because those foundations for a lot of these businesses, they know what they're doing. They understand those workflows and those motions that they do on a day-to-day basis. So we don't want to jump to something that they're completely unaware of. We want to say AI is really starts with understanding who you are, what you do on a daily basis, and then mending or making flexible the use of AI in a way that works for your corporation, your company, your workflow. Then it becomes valuable. We never want to see people kind of trying to jump or change their workflow to match some kind of tool, whether that's AI tool. I think there's probably tens of thousands of different powered by AI tools out there, but that's not the point. And the way that we look at it, it's your business does something really well, and we just want to make what you do really well even better. So if you're changing your company or your flow to match something else out there, then you're just kind of changing the way that has always worked to meet something that might not do the things that you want to do. So it's kind of bringing things back down to earth and understanding. Sometimes for a lot of these companies, it's understanding like for the first time, really, I didn't know that there was a bottleneck there. I didn't know that I could gain an efficiency there. And so that real discovery section of all these consultations that we do with clients is super powerful because they start to understand currently what they're doing and where they can actually see an elevation in production by then augmenting that segment to something like an AI tool, and whatever that tool might be is then kind of discussed as we go down the line.
Okay, that brings back something that I was reading the other day. I think it was McKinsey who published this, and they were saying that especially the C-suite, right? When they want to talk about AI, they should be taking around 20 hours of training so they can all speak the same language and get to this same understanding about what AI means to them, right? So in your experience, John, how flexible do you think the C-suite is, like commonly is to actually go and learn before jumping into AI? Or is it more like, I just want AI and bring it to me, right? No matter what that is. So in your experience, what have you seen regarding that?
It is, in my experience, AI is being handled much like any other shiny tool that's out there, which is kind of dangerous, right? So we'll see this with the advent and rise in Salesforce, HubSpot, some of these tools that obviously now are pretty well set in a lot of businesses, even communication tools, whether it's project management or Slack or things of that nature, Teams. I think once somebody in a C-suite especially starts to hear about these tools, the first thing that they think of is, I need to do that now because my competition is doing it, someone else is doing it, so we need to implement this right away without clearly understanding how or why. And again, that's kind of where I kind of try to to bring people back, and especially if you're talking from a leadership position and say, hey, I'm glad that you understand that this is a tool that you know that is important for you to take time and invest and do. But because of that importance, then it's equally important then to spend some time in understanding why and how you would use this tool. And then how does that affect the people below you, right? The people that are actually going to have to implement it or maybe change or alter some of the work that they're doing in a way that makes a lot of sense for them. Because the moment that we can offload and help the people that are building the company, uh-oh.
Oops.
No, it's all
Yeah, I
good.
think I can hear you now. Can you hear
Okay.
us, Jen?
Yeah, I can.
Yes?
All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no
No, no
worries.
worries.
No, like I was saying, the better that education is there on the top level, the better it is for them to be able to communicate that to everyone else that they expect that work to kind of go through, right? If you are able
Mhm.
to provide people with a clear understanding and a path, whatever it is, so AI or any other tool out there, the clarity that you can bring that decision point to people working for you, the more acceptance and understanding and the less of fear that they're going to have in saying, I now get what you're doing because you understand who I am and you're bringing something to me as an advantage, as to augment, because you recognize the other skills that are within me and you are bringing me something that is going to help me excel or be better, have a stronger voice in the company, and all in all, right, bring the company up as a whole. So I think that's a very
Mhm.
powerful way to approach it. And I've seen it the other ways too, right? I've obviously seen many people come up to us and say, I just know that we need this now. We need something on our website to make this do X, Y, and Z. Or I've heard that it does this things and let's just get it going. It's like, well, why? Is there a current problem that's happening right now? So it's just kind of scaling it back a little bit because I think we've seen it happen in both ways. If you kind of jump into it without understanding it, you're going to just end up with a lot more cost and no efficiency, right? Versus taking some time to understand what you need, understanding how that works for you, getting some of that vocabulary and learning so you make those better decisions going forward. Because in AI, as we know, things are constantly changing. So if you kind of miss the point of taking the time to learn those things, as we get more advanced and things start to change, you're not going to be equipped to make those decisions very easily, right? You're going to have to be even further lost in the sauce, as it were. So, I look at it the same way, and the legal part of me kind of takes hold here and says, you know what? There are a lot of complexities that can be out there, but if you don't understand the basics of contract law, criminal law, or some of these tenements that establish all these things, there is absolutely no way that you're going to be prepared to put together a policy agenda because you didn't take the time to learn where the fundamental blocks were. So I think there's just an importance there, and we try to bring that to a lot of the clients that we have those conversations with.
Mhm. Sweet. Yeah, I definitely agree. The fact that we need to start with the basics every time. And in more general terms, I think we are still speaking about this digital transformation that the companies must go through, right?
Yeah,
I feel that most of the time when we speak about it, we tend to think that a digital transformation is like a one thing only, like just one shot that you have to do and then the company is transformed. But the fact is that it's more like a process, right? In a continuous process. And this continuous process also works in the same way, in my mind, for AI. I mean, it's not like one shot, we implement AI, and now it magically runs with AI, right?
right,
Rather, it's this transformation that needs to occur, it's continuous, right?
correct.
So maybe another misconception that I tend to see is that sometimes we see this transformation in this commitment that is needed, right, from this C-suite, for example, in the whole company, um, to fade away across time, meaning they may start really motivated, or perhaps they appointed a couple of members, but the fact is that this is more like a general commitment that the company needs to be keep tracking of. And at the same time, that would also bring consistency, right, to the efforts. So, in
Sure.
your mind, or based on your experience, how is that working in the sense of who needs to commit and for how long, right?
Yep.
Based on the success stories that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you had some good points there. I mean, I think in general, again, not just with AI, just technology in general, a lot of times you're absolutely right that it'll be I need this now. We need to implement it. And you'll have maybe, a couple people on a team that are meant to kind of drive that change. They don't know a ton about it. They just know that they're supposed to be moving the needle a little bit on this. They don't get the buy-in from the rest of the team. The C-suites are the people that told them to kind of let's get this going are kind of disengaged from it in general and just are looking for the results. And so the problem there is that then you have people that are disengaged. They're not getting the buy-in that they need. They're not getting the support that they need. And especially the people that are putting the work together that could take an advantage of what AI could provide are just a little more hesitant to do it because the message to them is not 100% clear. They are unsure if this thing is going to last. They have seen other technologies come in and leave. They've been told about this plugin that's going to change this thing. They're told about we need to start moving things into this type of platform or this software, and then it goes away, right? And so there's this kind of sense of it's this kind of this big wave that's coming in. It's going to die down. I don't need to worry about it. And obviously that there's a lot of the fear in there. So there's a lot of hesitation in general with AI. And so I think that hesitation is even stronger. That's why I think the message needs to be clearer because of that fear, whether it's going to replace my job. If I'm a graphic designer or I'm a developer, I don't want to embrace this because why do I want to embrace something that's going to replace me? I'm just going to prove myself that I am better at doing this than the robots are, right? And so that's a kind of a strong message that you have to get beyond. And that's coming from leadership. That's coming from the teams that come together to try to plan and understand how AI is going to work. It's not only how do we understand the workflow and the plan and how we're utilizing it, but it's also how do we, again, communicate to our teams that this is here to stay, that this is not a wave that is going to die down anytime soon. This is something that is going to define us as a company. This makes us better at responding to clients. This makes us better at being prepared when we're in that next meeting. This makes us better prepared when so-and-so is on vacation, and now that workload that would have been extreme for them when they get back is now much more light, and that helps the team everywhere else. So it's all of these kind of understandings, these foundational truths that need to be embedded. So that's part of the company culture, I believe, as well. And so unlike other tools that are out there that might affect one or two people in the company or corporation, AI is something that needs to be understood as a wholehearted change for the way that you are doing business. And that's going to affect everybody that is there. It's a tool that is much like the internet, or much like the rise of mobile phones, right? Where it was like, I don't need to have a website that is mobile friendly. Why would I need that? Most people are on a computer, all of a sudden, the people that did make those changes early and had mobile phone, had a responsive website early on, took advantage of it. There was a huge advantage to that. The same thing with, SaaS or anything that was in the cloud base. There are some people who said, I don't understand what that means. I don't need to involve myself on that. We're fine with our actual drives here, X, Y, or Z, whatever that might be. And again, that was a change that just came and stood, and it's only grown more and more. The same thing with AI. The only difference is it's moving at such a faster pace. So the fact that the mobile took a little bit to kind of get there and get to where it's at, think of how much faster AI is going to move. And if you're at a place that you didn't take the time to set up or set the table, as it were, and understanding how your company could work with it, you're going to be stuck in this spot where now you have this fear of being left out. And now you don't have the time to set the table. You feel like, I just need to get this going right now. So you're going to run into those issues where if you didn't set the table in the first place, and now you're being forced to kind of implement this however it makes sense, your buy-in is going to be so much less, and it's going to be twice as hard to keep the entire business, corporation, project, or whatever it might be on task with using it and using it correctly, efficiently, and effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it has to do definitely with the way in which we are hardwired, in the sense of, we tend to be looking for safety, right? And that sometimes provokes that we are not as flexible as we could be
Sure.
many times, right? So I guess speaking about this flexibility and the fact that we are seeing AI pretty much everywhere, the point that you're making that this is really fundamentally changing the way in which we are living our lives and at the same time doing business, right? I think it's undeniable. And at the same time, I feel it's unstoppable because whether or not we want it, it seems it's already there, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
just to make it a bit lighter on that front, I'm curious about, could you recall a little bit how AI has changed the way in which you are working, and how AI is changing the way in which you are living these days? So maybe we can give a bit more context on the fact that we are already there, right?
Right.
And that's why as you were saying, the right time to start moving into that direction.
Sure. No, and I think so. Two different things. Well, maybe three, but I'll start with this and say that I think most of our tools that maybe a lot of businesses out there are already using have AI now built into it, right? They're the big companies, whether there's Salesforce, Slack, Asana's, any of these project management tools, now understand, because of the bigger players, that we need to make sure that we somehow are putting AI into our tools, right? So you're seeing that automatically. There's some efficiencies that you're bolted on, and sometimes there are higher tier to get onto the AI tier and use this, and it's going to make your life so much better. I think there's some hesitation usually with that because, again, if you don't know what it's supposed to do and you just hear about it, and am I going to have to spend that much? Is my business ready for that, et cetera, et cetera? So you don't have the chance to want to dive into too deeply. Again, there's a kind of a fear to kind of stay back away from it. For us, however, so I always, and when we talk to any new clients or any current clients that we have, I always advise them and said, look, you want to start small. I said, I'm sure Salesforce has a great thing. HubSpot, I'm sure all of them have great opportunities for you to do there. But if I could impart anything to any of these clients, I tell them, start first without AI. Understand what you're currently doing so you can identify those bottlenecks, and then start with something that is readily available to anyone out there, whether that's Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, and these $20 a month kind of deals, right? That you get this enormous ability in your hands, but then you start to learn what it can do. And then most people start in that area and say, okay, I'm gonna see what this is about. I mean, is this gonna help me build some content? It's gonna help me write a blog. That's great. But then start to dig into it a little more. That means researching and learning about it, because when they start to do that, then they start to see like, oh, I didn't know that this could help me with my Excel documents, or I didn't know that it could start doing these things, or I didn't know that I was able to do these things with the help of Codex or with the help of Claude Coworker, all these things. And people are not going to know that, because for the most part, even people that are in the industry are just kind of aware of these chat bots that are there. And that's kind of like with their comfort level. They treat it like Google. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. It gives me information back. But for us, it's like, okay, start there, and then let's build upon it so you can start to see where the real value is. And so for companies like us, where we're an agency, and we obviously have a lot of clients that we talk to, we have a lot of internal staff that we deal with, and going back and forth and things of that nature. Some of the simple things that we do, and for me, from the operations side of things, is we would have piles and piles of internal. We'd have an internal documentation for who the clients are, what the current budget is, how many hours have been put to it. And we'd go every week and we'd have kind of like a meeting, and we'd pull up the spreadsheets and we'd look at all these things, and it'd be like, okay, here's this spreadsheet here, here's this over here, here's where we're at the percentage wise. And trust me, as boring as it sounds, it really was. No one likes staring at spreadsheets day in and day out. But for us to have the ability to utilize AI in a way that says, hey, if we have all this data here, how do we make it more relatable to our team, right? Our team is excited by things that, one, look really cool and awesome, but two, that are really relevant to what they're doing and who they are. So if you start to build those narratives, so for us, it was, okay, we want to know if something is on fire, if we want to know if something is really winning, and we want to know what kind of operations it was that was doing those things. So we bubble those up, we feed that into an AI tool like ChatGPT, custom GPTs and things of that nature. But what that gets us is somebody like me, who has no development background, is able to build dashboards that then is available to our team, not just when they have a project manager meeting, but every day, any day, with a simple URL. They go to it, it's pulling information on a constant basis, it's lighting things up, and then they can search for themselves and see exactly what they did the prior week, the week coming up, and get email notifications all on its own. The data has always been there. The way that we used to do it has changed, right? The data has always been there, but the way that we are producing it, providing it, and expanding upon it is what's changed. And that's a small change. That wasn't something that we went out and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do. What it did take was some time and effort on our end to figure out what's the best way to do this. How do we talk to it this way? What part of this tool is going to do it? But it was kind of an iteration, right? It was kind of like talking to one of our own staff members and saying, hey, I want to do this. I don't quite like that. Okay, how do I do this? And he walked through it in a certain way, and all of a sudden, we now have a powerful internal dashboard that is built directly for our team. It's custom built for us, and it's alive and it's moving, and other team members completely understand how to use it because it's accessible to them. We've heard the feedback from them. Hey, I don't like, can we do this? Sure. Let's make a quick change. Boom, 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 boom. And it's done. And so we try to take that kind of experience and provide that to any of our clients that are coming to us and saying, hey, I'm having a real bottleneck with doing this or that. I said, okay, well, let's see how you're currently doing it. What would you like it to do? Okay, well, let's experiment in getting you into that position, right? And so it's been a great game changer for us, but also a great eye opener for a lot of our clients out there that might not believe that, hey, I have this great idea, but they might try to explain it to you and say, well, let's walk through it together and let me start to visualize it for you. And so those visualizations, whether it's through Gemini, whether it's through Nana Banana, it's through Claude Code, to be able to take ideas while you're sitting in a meeting with a client and then visually show them those things, not just in a static image, but it's actually an interactive image that are done within 15, 20 minutes that you're talking to the client. That's huge. We've always known, being a digital company that we are, that visualizations, those are what really excites people. No one wants to talk about what their website should look like or what they're trying to do for this or that. They want to actually see it in action. And so to have the ability to have a team member with you that can take those ideas and immediately visualize it, it's a powerful tool. It makes you go from ideas to action in so much faster time. And I think that's a really advantageous way to look at that.
Okay. You really had very good points there, John. And I want to start by recapping a little bit on what you were saying about all of these big platforms having these AI features, right? Sometimes when the strategy is not clear, you can notice that some of these platforms and these features are something like an extra that they added because it was AI, and they can claim that they are an AI company now. But I've heard jokes saying, okay, this new AI feature is cool, but how do I turn it off?
Yeah.
Because something I
Yep.
I actually didn't want, and it's not really helping me, and it's just costing more, right? So I guess it really has to do, and it reflects on how the company really needs to embed this strategy into not only one part of their offering, but really, getting this. What I've seen is these end-to-end workflows transformed, right? So you can actually see a shift in the business model and also the operation model, and actually start seeing this as a end-to-end move, right? That actually provides the benefits that you are expecting out of it. So I can think of it really on that scale. I can also notice that the kind of systems that we are dealing with normally are perhaps we can label them on the enterprise scale in many times in these multinational companies. And what we are experiencing is that we are seeing this struggle between the things that you can do by yourself, right? That is, as you were saying, all of these marvelous things that you can just do from your own computer and start creating like your own tools and interacting with them, and actually, as you were saying, seeing the data in different ways and really making decisions more informed because are creating your own tools, kind of.
Right.
And then we also have this other scale where you're actually connecting all of these pieces at that level, where you're connecting different systems, and then you have to make sure that the data is available, and then retrain models and all of that kind of stuff. That it's definitely a different scale and a different impact if we want to see it, because the companies are not necessarily not necessarily all the companies are Fortune 500, right? But we can all benefit from this transformation, and that's something I'm liking about what I'm hearing from what you're saying, right? And the
Yeah.
fact that you start small and then you start building from there, I think it's always beneficial in the sense that you are getting experience and you are understanding how it works, as we were saying earlier. And then on that base, you can start building more and more, right?
Absolutely.
So, what about because I've seen this kind of transformation before in the shape of low code and no code tools, right? Where in theory people could also create some solutions by themselves. Um, what happens in terms of the governance? If everybody has access to these AI tools, right? Based on your experience, what specific lines or specific rules need to be in place so this growth that they are orchestrating, it's actually um, yet I mean organic, but at the same time orderly, right? Like following some order and some governance and making sure you stick with or you are building these things securely. So from
Sure.
your perspective, what is in that front and how do you handle it?
Yeah. No, a great question, and I do think if we look at the current state of AI, especially in the United States, I mean, it is the wild west of a tool, right? It is everyone is pushing to be number one and first in everything, and so the tools themselves are pretty much unfettered. Like they are regulations and guardrails. We are we are hoping against hope that they themselves, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic or Google, they themselves are taking stands within themselves to make sure that the tools that they are providing are as accurate as possible, as guarded as possible. But I mean, that's a big. I hope it's going to be okay kind of deal that we're kind of putting our trust in those things, and I think that's what makes it even much more important as a corporation, as a company, as a business, for you to understand that you need to, before you release these tools, whatever it might be, out to your team, that you have a very clear set of, this is how we are going to do it. These are the acceptable things that we can do within it. These are the things that we don't do within it. And if you have a question about it, this is the person to ask, right? And so you can build these things with the tools, with people that have knowledge. So the tools that you are building have those guardrails in place. They are done in a way that are, in line with what you need to be doing as a company or corporation, are not using, proprietary information. You as a company are not putting out information out there that are just spit out directly from AI. I think there have probably been 1,001 different stories about AI hallucinations, and that fact is that it's still there. We've seen the benchmarks of how much less hallucinations are happening. Any hallucination, let me be very clear, any hallucination that you as a company or corporation put out, that's on you, and that is absolutely not worth it. So there is always, and people say this all the time, it's always advantageous that there is a human in the loop, right? There is somebody that is managing and making sure that things aren't just put out there automatically without having a sense of a human there, for reasons, multiple reasons. But one of those reasons is authenticity, right? We want to make sure that you are sounding as authentic and real. And that comes from the actual human. That comes from the person that understands the company or corporation, the brand, the messaging. So that's number one. But number two is a message that's incorrect ostensibly is a terrible message for you. And then you as a company or corporation have to come back and then address the fact that, were you just lazy? Were you not paying attention? And that just speaks so much more louder than it needs to be. It could have been prevented had you had a thing in place, a policy in place, a guardrail in place where that wouldn't have occurred. So in our cases here, nothing is ever just kind of produced and put out, whether that's imagery, whether that's, content, whether that's strategy. These are always the starting points, and then it's filtered through multiple people to say, okay, how can I change this? Or some of those people are saying, okay, where did you get this? Oh, this was from Claude. Okay, I'm going to run that through ChatGPT, and then I'm going to run that through Gemini, and I'm going to tell them that I want different perspectives on it. And we start to utilize agents against themselves to get us at a better, bigger picture, and then to validate some of those things. So everything that needs to have validation, the idea that, oh, I didn't have time to validate it, is kind of a ridiculous excuse to have, because any of these tools will allow you to see that those sources of things that where things come from. And so it takes a little bit of extra time to do that, but it's incredibly important to make sure that you're the ones doing that for sure. Because I think, again, if you let it run wild, and especially where we're at right now with AI, I look at AI and I said, we started with AI chatbots. It's kind of a very simple, it's only going to do what you tell it to do. So I'm looking for this in this area. Here, spits it out, gives you the information. It's great. Obviously needs validation. Then we started moving into what you're talking about, is having AI as kind of a workflow. So you start connecting it to things that are, like Zapier, or if this, then that, right? Where you say, okay, this tool is going to go here, then it's going to do to this one. So you have defined lines where you know that it's going to go. It's going to go here, then to here, and then here, and you're looking at it, and then you hit go. Okay, I'm good. We're going to do these things. Obviously, you still need to keep an eye at what's going on. But where we're getting at to now with these open clause and these actual Manus or these other types of agentic behavior, people get really excited about it. But the thing that you need to understand is now what you're doing is you are now kind of stepping a little bit further back away from what these machines are basically doing now. You're saying, I'm going to give you the brain of Claude or OpenAI, and then from that, I'm going to start connecting you to my internal tools, my computer itself, my Salesforce, my CRMs over here, and I'm going to tell you my intent. I want these things to happen, but how you do it, OpenClaw or whoever it is, I want you to figure it out on your own. And it's a great thing because you can go get your coffee and it's got to do the things that I need to do. But if you don't take the time to tell it, at this point, I need you to ask for permission or do these things, you are putting way too much faith in these machines, because they, just like machines do, they are set on doing a mission. And how that mission gets done may not be the right way that you as a company or corporation want it to get done. There's a lot of efficiencies that can be done through these things, especially as we get into those levels of agentic behavior. But the cautions become triple, quadruple than you would ever have than being in front of a tool that is only going to do the things that you directly ask it. So there's a lot of efficiencies, and I think people are very excited to know, like, oh my gosh, we're getting into a point where I basically had one agent that can run 13 different agents, that can run 14 different agents, and that they start to see that in their eyes and they kind of glaze over. And they're like, this is incredible. But again, if you are not taking the time to understand, okay, this agent here will have this checkpoint, this agent here will have this checkpoint, and then this is going over to this person, that they're going to validate it before sending it out, then, I mean, again, you might be the first one out the door with something, but the thing that you put out that door is going to be a very, very dangerous opportunity for you to mess up completely. So,
Yeah, I think it's never enough to highlight, right, that these systems, and because of the very nature of how they are compound, and I'm speaking about AI, normally the results that we are getting from these systems are what we would call probabilistic, right, or non-deterministic, meaning that not necessarily for the same input every time we would get the same output. And I think it's important to highlight it, because with regular systems, right, we were used to have that consistency, and that means, like, we have a Excel spreadsheet, we have formulas, and we put some data in there, and then we get the results, right? And we get them
right.
every time, because those rules are there, are like coded precisely, right? So we can get this result. But every time that we are thinking about implementing an AI system, the rules are slightly different, because we need to take that and factor that into our architecture, and plan for it, as you were saying, with guardrails and other things. But I guess I'm trying to hide like this, because when we are talking about agents, right, we are talking about systems that we are empowering to work independently, right? And as you were saying, when one agent calls another agent, right, and if we have this possibility here, if we don't have the right security guardrails, measures, and even feedback loop, right, to trace the results and the whys and the hows and how to improve it, then we may end up with a system that is just propagating potential errors, and it's like a snowball that starts getting bigger and bigger, right? So the risks multiply. So I think that's also important, right? To highlight again the importance of understanding what we are doing and the different things that are implied in there, and why the need of having these extra mechanisms that normally we would see in a different shape for traditional systems, right? And my next question is, what happens in your experience when you are connecting these AI systems, right, that are non-deterministic, to regular systems? What are the results that you are seeing, and how easy or hard have you found making these connections between systems and creating systems that are a bit more complicated in a way, if we speak about the architecture and the complexity of the results, right?
Yep. No, I think we're in a great position now where I would say 5 years ago, if you said I needed to connect my project management team with Outlook and I need that to do, X, Y, they have the abilities, right? There are APIs, there are certain connections that a lot of these tools already have in them, but then you have to know and understand how those work. Well, okay, I need to get a developer to understand how that's gonna. I think it has an API. It says it has a connection. It has a webhook. And if we're lucky enough that we're working tech, so we have developers that get that, right? That understand it. But if you're talking about somebody that's running a business and you're like, well, I'm using Outlook and I'm using Slack or I'm using Asana, and I think they have things to talk to each other. I don't know how to make that work. And so when you started to get into a position where you had things like if this then that or Zapier, they started to make it a little bit friendlier. And so those people that aren't developers were like, oh, great, I can just kind of visually see how I want them to connect. And it started like people that use that really started to see a lot of efficiency. They're like, this is incredible. I didn't know that this could do this. So that happened a couple of years ago. We're in a position now that if you know enough about AI is what's going to help you. Those tools are going to help you connect those things because they're made to want to talk and get that information. And those other tools, whether it's Asana, whether it's Slack, whether it's Google Sheets, they're made to want to work with those other things. And so when you have in front of you an interface that says, hey, all you need to do is tell me your intent, and I will tell you how I'm going to do those connections. And then you can iterate with it. And so that's why I always kind of say, like, you want to start that small area. You might have this big, great plan. And the way I do it is I say, start with that huge, big plan. Whatever is in your head, whatever the idea of the workflow is supposed to look like, don't even hold back. Like, just spend time just talking through it like you're giving a narrative to somebody else, and then help the AI within that quote, I'll call it a prompt, but in that story that you give AI, ask it, evaluate what my plan is, help me understand how to do that, and walk me through each of these steps, and break it down for yourself so you can see how it's going to interact, right? It's important for you as the orchestrator, as the director, to understand how it thinks it can connect, and then you can validate it each of the steps along the process. And that's super important. And then all of a sudden, again, it's less of you getting involved in the code and more of, hey, I need this API. Well, where do I find it? You go in here and you're talking with it and you're providing these things and you're getting that understanding along the way. And then all of a sudden you're building these things that at one time you were like, that's crazy. I didn't know I could log into a website for me and pull these things. Like to me in my brain, it's like if I have to log into a website and then it has to go click on a button that has to download a CSV. I mean, that seems crazy. There's no way I can automate that. And then you talk to these systems, and it's like, that's easy. I can do that. Let me help you through it. Let me walk you through it. Do. And you start building these things, these skills, these knowledge set that later on you can save and always have that in there. And that's another discussion altogether. But the idea is these systems that can start to talk to each other in a more holistic manner are so much easier to do now because we have these tools that can help walk you through it and pinpoint it. Now, that's not to say that there's no mistakes with it, because even myself, as I work through these things, like there are times where I thought it was a great idea. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going to send the notifications to Slack. I'm going to send an email when this red line happens, and it'll send a notification. Everyone's going to be informed. Great. I love that. You're going to do all these things. Hit go. That's going to be great. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, here are these notifications. And it's like, I didn't realize that it was going to notify everything in this channel and then send duplicate emails this way. And it was like, oh my gosh. And so you kind of see that, okay, had I done this on a grander scale, this would have been crazy, a terrible idea. And when you're dealing with AI systems, a lot of times things are done in tokens, right? So it's the idea of how much compute is necessary to do those things. And when you get stuck in a loop without you knowing it, machines are going to be like, okay, do it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. And it's just going to keep on going back and forth And all of a sudden, you look at your usage of whatever tool that you're using, and it's like, oh my gosh, it got stuck in a loop, and now I'm 6,000 tokens behind of whatever I'm doing. And so that's why I think some of these tools out there will give you an opportunity to look and make sure that things are working. But again, vigilance is key. Vigilance is key in anything that you put together, especially when you're dealing with multiple different tools that you're trying to connect. It's imperative to understand, is this working correctly? Does this how this tool does react? Is that sending, so if you don't take the time again to start off and understand how those connections are working, give it a test run, obviously in a smaller group before you release it anywhere, get the feedback from others, then you can start to push things out forward. You always want to start at a smaller scale and then build it up. So it might be like, hey, this is great that this now sends so-and-so this email. How else can we improve it? Does that email sending working great? Okay, now let's build that up and say, what if it can also send to this Slack channel? What if it could then produce this chart as well? Then build on those what ifs, because I think the more time people try to take something from this large idea and just kind of shove it in, you're going to mess up. It's kind of like, if you're going to do a recipe for a very wonderfully complicated, delicious meal, and you have all the ingredients, you have everything ready to go, and you're just like, okay, shove it in the oven and hit go. It's like, well, you're going to get something burned and terrible. Like, you had everything in place, but you didn't take the time to realize that, oh, I needed to let this sit out. Oh, I didn't know that it needed extra. It said it needed this much salt, but I tasted it, and now I realize it's not salty. I need a little bit more flavor. And so it's just like anything else. You can produce something amazing and wonderful and delicious, but you do that by putting yourself into it and creating that for yourself, because of one thing that might sound like it's a delicious meal might not be delicious to you, because you have different tastes, and companies and corporations have different ways of doing things. And so again, the best use of AI, and I know I've said this before, is you as a company or corporation, you put yourself into what you need AI to do, and you let AI work towards that. You never want to work towards fitting yourself into AI.
John, following up like on what you just said and results and all that, I was thinking like these AI initiatives are often like justified with promises of efficiency and automation, right?
Mhm.
But like measuring the real operational impact or value might be sometimes difficult. So in your experience, how should organizations measure whether their AI initiatives are actually delivering operational impact?
Sure. I think anyone's, okay, I would say everyone, but my core understanding of it with my team is time, right? It's time is valuable, because I find value in your ability to go ahead and have that extra call with a client, or to spend the time to go ahead and think about what other things we can do for the client. Hey, we might have these 8 things that we're doing, but spend the time to think about how we can improve those things that we're doing, or how we can jump off of that. Now, that takes some human thought in there as well. And so when we start to utilize AI tools to offload some of the laborious tasks that most people have, whether that is, okay, I need to follow up with an email back to them. I need to send an agenda report together. I need to get my team together and give a breakdown, and we need to have a meeting, and blah, blah, blah. All these kind of things that kind of like need to happen for sure. But it's just kind of taking the time of a lot of people to kind of put these things together. Like, okay, well, in order to get this task out, I got to send this over to development. Development's got to get it back to me. They're going to send me this thing. I need to check if they send it back to me. All of this, as we start to see what the bottlenecks were. And again, it's going to be different for different people. It's going to be different for the graphic designer than it is going to be for the project manager. But you start to understand, hey, where are you feeling the biggest kind of grind, where you're like, I do this day in and day out. If I just didn't have to do this, it would give me 10 more minutes of the day. So, okay, let's work on those small wins. Okay, here it is. What else could work for our sales team? Well, if I didn't have to, find the person on LinkedIn and get the report in and kind of read, if I could just kind of get that immediately, then I could spend the time digesting that information more and preparing for that meeting. Okay, well, let's do that, because we can do those things. Where do you get your information? Well, I go to LinkedIn, I kind of pull this up, like, okay, let's figure out where your truths are, and let's build a system for you so that when you are on the call, you can better prepare for that. What are the questions that you get on the call constantly? And these are our sales teams, right? They're in and out all the time, so they know the common questions that they get. They know the requests that they get. So we start to build these things into repeatable mechanisms or machines that we use. So now my sales team comes in there and they say, okay, I'm meeting with so and so. Put in the name, hit enter. All of a sudden, here's a report for them. So now they're not spending the time going back to LinkedIn and find those things are brought to the forefront for them. Now they have everything that they could think about in terms of what could be some possible roadblocks for this client in converting. Now they have the answers in front of them. Not saying that they're going to go sit there like a script, right, and read it all through, but they are better prepared for that, and they're not spending the time doing that. They're spending the time digesting and understanding it, and they become better salespeople because they're not dealing with some of these kind of like, I guess these research tasks, so to speak, but they're spending the time building and doing what they do really well, which is relationship building. And so we find that great. For designers and developers, obviously that's a little bit different, but obviously all the coding work that they're kind of spending the time with, it's not that they're turning it over and saying, okay, AI, you build it all. But what it does allow them to do is that they're not spending time, Googling these things or kind of looking at seeing on these different stacks situations where they're looking and say, okay, where that error was, here's in Reddit, they said this was going on, maybe I could try it this way. Rather, they can take this idea, and this also helps our project management team or anyone else to communicate to a developer. So if there's a kind of this language barrier, right? Like the client wants to do this, my developer's saying, well, that's going to require X, Y, and Z. And so they're just like, they don't understand why they can't do the thing that's being asked. And so it allows the project manager to say, okay, they're trying to do this. And my developer to say, okay, this is why it doesn't work, but help me break that down. So this person who's not a JavaScript or, doesn't work in the CRMs on a day-to-day basis understands where there's a hindrance to it. And so they're not so frustrated with the thought of like, I have to explain this to them, because those explanations can now be brought forward in a way that anyone can understand. Oh, I get it. I'm missing X, Y, and Z. I know what to go back to my client and ask for. Or, oh, I get it. This is why it's going to take 8 hours and not 2 hours. And so those frustrations are alleviated, and it allows our teams to work so much better because everyone is communicating in the same manner and in the same way. So for us, that's kind of where the big wins have been. It's just been that efficiency and being able to communicate and talk not only to our clients, but internally amongst ourselves. So it's been great.
Great. And now, like looking ahead, what do you think the next stage of AI-enabled operations will look like inside companies?
Yeah. No, like I said, I think right now, if I'm looking at things, things like OpenClaw, so these truly agentic behaviors, we are going to start to see built into a lot of the different workflows that we're doing now. So to some extent, some of the bigger players out there are going to start really. Salesforce has their own agent. Now, again, just like AI, just sort of put some caution out there. Everyone says something is AI, not necessarily is it AI. It just might just be a workflow. It's not really truly AI. And the same thing with agents. People use that term, and it's like, is that truly an agent, or is it just you heard the word agent and it was like, I'm just going to say that this is an agentic behavior? It's like, that's not really the case. Be that as it may, the idea of having systems that are able to work within themselves and produce those things without you having to come in on a day-to-day basis and say, I need you to pull this report, or I need you to do these things. Rather, having that preparation in front of you and just checking in with Jeeves or whatever your AI agent might be. Hey, how's that going in marketing? What's the top line? What's going on in the team over there? Able to say, okay, it goes back. It already has access to everything that you have in your Slack channel. It has everything active in your internal database, and is able to pull up. So I can look at my phone. It says, as of X date, this is what's going on. Here's the bottlenecks. Here's what's going on. Here's where you're taking advantage of it. Great. So the more that we get access to these truly agentic behaviors where you can start treating AI like it's one of your, a very, very efficient executive assistant, I think is where the real benefits are going to be. And I think it'll probably start with a lot of the C-suite people, right? The people that are looking for, I just need to know what's happening, where there's bottlenecks, where I can improve. I think that's the immediate effect that's what's going to be felt. Then it's going to start filtering into, I think, other people in terms of, okay, I know that I need to commit these things to this branch or do these things. It's just going to do it automatically on its own now. Perfect. It's going to push these things out automatically. Wonderful. My for design, right? We have tons of folders that you used to put things in, and who knows if that's the first folder? Is that the latest design? Is that the latest design? What folder is it in? I don't know. It's in the second one that said this is the final. No, this is the final. No, this is the final image. And so it's like, oh my gosh, where is it? I don't know. It's somewhere in there. Having an agent to be able to say, hey guys, drop it here. Let the agent worry about bubbling it up, organizing it, putting it away so that you're able to find it immediately. It's a little bit different than what a lot of people are doing sometimes right now, where they're like, well, I can just search and it'll kind of bring me a list of things that are out there and maybe I can kind of narrow it down. Now, just imagine being like, no, it's not a search. It's just going to find exactly what you need when you need it, and then be like, oh, by the way, here are the other things that you said about it recently as well. So it's just kind of this knowledge that just comes forward to you without even thinking about it. And we're starting to see that with some of these bigger systems. So Manus, I think, is a great example of that, which by itself was a standalone kind of corporation that was the idea of like, we're going to be the true ones that got to bring agentic work for you, right? Before OpenAI did the operator, before Claude co-work and all this stuff, Manus was kind of this thing that was out there. It was this kind of a cool idea, and it had a lot of traction on it. But what it allowed itself to do was really put itself out there, and people start to see what agentic behavior would look like. And then, of course, what happens with that? Meta eats it up. Mark Zuckerberg looks at it and says, this is a great idea. We're a little behind right now as it is, as being as big a Meta is right now in the AI space. We're not quite there, but look at what Manus is doing. And they were able to kind of see, like, this is kind of where things are going to go. Let's go ahead and absorb that, so we have that in our pipeline. So when people are really starting to knock on the door for agentic behavior, things like Manus are things that they can control. And obviously they have their hands in a lot of things, but I mean, even working within WhatsApp and Instagram and things like all of those start to communicate better together. And especially depending on what you're doing or where you're fitting within your corporation or company, having it all in one spot, it makes it that much easier to eventually connect and put things out that are going to be really amazing ways of getting your work out there in a much more efficient manner.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
John. We have
Absolutely.
3 minutes too, actually. Ed, do you have any closing questions? Or should
I
we
do
go
have one for John. Yeah. So, John, we spoke about the strategy that companies can take and how this transformation is happening, etc. What would be your piece of advice, not necessarily for the companies, but for the people working at these companies, for them to start preparing to what is coming and the new reality that they will start living, right, with these transformations that are happening? What would be your take on perhaps the top 3 things that they can start making today so they get prepared and ready for living this transformation themselves?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I would definitely say number 1 is just start. I mean, I think that's as easy as it can be. Just start. If you haven't taken the opportunity to understand the difference between ChatGPT and Claude, take the time to understand they are different systems and they put out different things. Understand what works for you, what feels better, what's more comfortable for you, and start there, because I think the moment that you kind of get yourself involved in it, then you kind of start to see how things can get affected, how you can become more efficient. Number 2 is start to understand once you have a feel for, hey, this is kind of cool, I like how these things do, have an understanding of what you do on a daily basis that might be a bottleneck. What do you do that you wish, if you had if you have a genie, right, a magical genie somewhere that could elevate you or lighten your load, what would that be and why? And then bring it back to Claude or bring it back to OpenAI, bring it back to Gemini, whatever it is, and say, hey, this is where I'm having the issue. Help me break this down. Ask me the right questions that you might need in order to kind of walk me through this. Because at that point, now you're starting to take something that's real to you and you're utilizing these tools to say, is there something that you can do to make me better at it? And you start to get those things and you start with those small, easy wins. It might be as simple as, I hate putting out the call reports after this. How can I get back? Can you help me with this? And they're going to say, yeah, here's the things that I'm going to need. Then start after that. The third thing I'd say is start to learn how to template or solidify some of these things. So whether that's utilizing a skill within Claude, utilizing a custom GPT, so that you're not having to worry about what was the prompt that I put in there. Is this, so many times you get people are like 100 prompts that are going to change your life. You must use these prompts to be an operation. I ignore those things. I think once you become a pro at it, you are going to figure out what works for you and then save those things again for you. So again, you attack this as the director and operator yourself, and you are now becoming a power user because AI is working for you. You're not working for AI.
Fantastic. All right, John. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. I think we really managed to get through many different aspects, right? And for sure, there's way more to be talking about, much more details, much more things to uncover. So I hope we get the opportunity to talk again soon. Thank you so much, Gabby. It's been great as always. And once again, thank you so much for being here with us today.
All right. But it's a pleasure. Thank you again, Gabby and Edgar. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And Edgar, it's always a pleasure to do these events with you. Thank you, everyone that joined us. And we'll be back with another Tech Social soon. Thanks again and have a good one. Bye-bye.